if so I just started the recording, so that way if anyone misses couldn't make it to this but still wants to see what happens, we'll send the video out afterwards, or if you want to review it after it's done. So let's go ahead with the first item on the agenda, just introductions and a welcome from us. So my name is Jonah. I'm the social media manager for Sports Reference. So I handle most of our social media marketing, our Twitter accounts, our Instagram, all of that stuff. As a result of doing this job for a few years, I've really gotten to know my way around the site, both because I'm answering questions from people all day and because I'm doing research as well to find interesting stuff. So I'm using the site in a way that's very similar to how y'all will be using it. So I'm gonna help, and then I'll turn it over to Katie, who's also going to handle the other half of the presentation to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Sharp, and I'm the lead customer success and social media associate for Stathead. So I specifically work with the Stathead product and customer success. That means answering anybody's questions. They can write in their email, for Twitter, Facebook, phone calls, whatever. So I'm helping people with their website and with their Stathead accounts. And then I also do all the social media specifically for the Stathead Twitter. So at Stathead. So kind of a little similar to Jonah in that I'm on social media a lot, but then also in the, in the customer success and the marketing departments, helping, front facing with all of our Stathead customers.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize too that this is not like just the only complete access you're going to have. So like Katie mentioned, if you have questions about the site, you can email us at any time. You can DM either the Stathead account or the Basketball Reference account. Just if you have any questions down the line at any point, we're always happy to help people find answers, sort through the website, even if there's stuff we can do on our end that might help you all out, we're happy to, if it's feasible, work through that. So with all that in mind, before we get into the actual kind of meat of the presentation, we just wanted to see if there was anything in particular that y'all would like to know or wanted us to touch on while we go through this presentation. So if there is something, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand and I'll unmute you if you have anything just kind of off the bat that you definitely want us to address. If not, if you're not sure, we can just kind of get into the presentation. We'll have plenty of opportunities for questions down the line. All right, so it looks like there's not, but again, there's not right now, but again, if anything comes up while we're doing this presentation, feel free to just ask, just put it in the chat or raise your hand. We'll have opportunities for questions too. But with that in mind, I'm going to start the presentation now. And for this first half, I'm going to show you around the main Basketball Reference WNBA website. So this is all stuff that is free, that's available to anybody. That's just kind of a part of our core website, but that I think, especially some of the stuff as I get deeper in, people might not have realized that we have it. Some of it is on the newer side. And then the second half of the presentation, Kay is going to take you through Stathead, which is our subscription kind of premium research tool, and show you some of the more advanced things you can do in there. So with that in mind, I'm going to now share my screen with the Basketball Reference site. All right, so hopefully that's working. You all can see that. So this is the main Basketball Reference website. If you just type basketballreference.com, you'll get to there. And then you can see on this gray bar, we have a bunch of kind of core, sections you can go to, and one of them is our WNBA section. So we'll go there, and you'll see a homepage that looks pretty similar to the page you were just on. It's got kind of the links to the players over here. We put the standings up here, yesterday's games, et cetera. You know, I'm not going to belabor this point. So in the past, if you've been to this website before this year, you would probably just be looking at kind of, you know, these core kind of like season long stat totals. So, you know, you can see their points, assists, rebounds, stuff like that. One thing we do is try to publish, in addition to the main stats, you can see totals per 36, per 100, all of that stuff. One thing I'm not sure, you all probably know this, but I'm still not sure if it has like super public awareness, but we do advanced stats. So you can get PER and win shares, usage rate, true shooting, kind of all of that stuff as well. But what I really want to get into here is some stats that we just added for this season that are based on play-by-play. So we recently got a data set of all the play-by-play data back to 2018 for the WNBA. Basically, if you go into, I'll go into a box score to show you what this kind of like raw data looks like. So sorry, just give me 1 second to navigate to that. My computer is a little slow. But if we go into this box score for last night's game between the Mercury and the Liberty, and we go to the play-by-play section, you can see this is what I'm talking about. So we have all of this back to 2018 for every single game. And you can see it's just a record of everything that happens. So every shot they take, whether they make it or miss it, rebounds, it records who gets the assist, turnovers, steals, and as well as stuff like the score as it runs up and who's on the floor in those times. If you scroll down, eventually you'll be able to see like when someone is substituted out, like over here, you can see Taurasi getting subbed in, Diggins Smith getting subbed out. So we track all of that stuff. So we know who's on the floor, we know every single thing that happened, and we have some details. So we know like where the shot came from, what kind of shot it was, all of that stuff. So this on its own is maybe not super useful to y'all, you know, it's just kind of a log of the game. But what it allows our programmers to do is calculate all kinds of really interesting, deeper kind of advanced looks at what the players are doing when they're on the floor. So if you scroll down past these kind of like main stats, which are the, you know, the core kind of like box score stats, even past the kind of main, you know, advanced stats like PER and win shares, you'll get to these sections that are like play-by-play and shooting. And all of this stuff is new as of this year. And you can see we can use it to calculate things like the team's net rating when the player is on the floor. So you can see here when Taurasi's on the floor this year, Phoenix is 1.6 points per 100 possessions better than average. They're winning the minutes with Taurasi on the floor. But you can see that there's actually a slight decrease when she's on the floor from their total, from their normal net rating. So normally their net rating, off the top of my head, I would say that that's about I think that's 2.3. So they're plus 2.3 when she's off and plus 1.6 when she's on. And then so that's just interesting information. And then as writers or analysts, you can break down the film and figure out, you know, why that would be the case. You can also just kind of drop that in as interesting information. In addition, we track stuff like turnovers. You can see fouls committed, fouls drawn, points generated by assists. So that's obviously just like the points that other players are scoring off of the assists that they make, and ones, you know, shots that are blocked. And then for their shooting, again, because of that play-by-play data, we can break down their shooting so we can see their average shot distance. So you can see this year, Diana Taurasi's average shot distance is about 19.4 feet from the hoop. So definitely taking long-range shots. You can see the breakdown of her percentage of shots by distance. So just kind of broken down in different buckets. So like 0 to 3 feet, basically at the rim, 3 to 10 feet, basically at the paint. Then you have the mid-range game, and then 3-pointers. And then you can see, so that's the percentage of their field goal attempts. So that's the rate that they're shooting from each distance. And then you can see the actual field goal percentage by distance. You can see dunks and corner threes as well, stuff like that. So all that's interesting to look at for one player. But to me, the really interesting stuff about this is to take a look at what sort of how that measures up to the league as a whole, who's excelling in different stats, who's not. So the way to do that is to go to these season pages. We have one for each season in WNBA history. We have stuff like season level stats and box scores all the way back to the first season in WNBA history. But these play-by-play stats only go back to 2018, like I was saying. So if you go to hover over the player stats thing, you can get leaderboards for any stat. And you can see up here, once you're on the player stats thing, it's very easy to navigate from one kind to the other. So here's per game, here's advanced. And then once you're in one of these tables, if you click on them, it will sort by whichever stat you clicked on, whichever column header you click on. All of these are clickable, and then the table resorts, and it'll automatically filter out. I think, oh no, it probably won't do that, but you can also like sort by minutes played if you want to, and then adjust the table if you want to get a certain minutes threshold. But you can see this is the play-by-play table I was showing you earlier. So you can see who in the league has the best net rating when they're on the floor. Obviously, Della Donna is killing it in her now that she's back. You can see Jonquel Jones, probably the highest, person who's playing like real starter level minutes. And then just down the list, so you can see also who's having the biggest impact. So this is the biggest shift in net rating when the player is on the floor versus when they aren't. I think that stuff is really, really interesting. I look at it all the time just to see like which players are having the biggest impact. Obviously, a lot of it is contextual too. So kind of mixing that with like, watching the games, analyzing the strategy that the team is using. I think putting all that together really gives you like interesting insights into what impact players are having and what teams are trying to do. You can do this for anything. So you can see who's generating the most points off of assists, who has the most and ones. And then it's the same deal with these shooting stats. You can see who is taking the most shots at the rim. You can see who's taking the most kind of long twos, and then who's shooting the best on these as well. You can also see who has the highest rate of their shots assisted. So I think all that stuff is pretty interesting, and just gives you kind of a new dimension to analyze and understand kind of what's happening in the game. In addition to that, we have all of these kind of team stats. So you can look at all of this stuff on the team level, including those kind of like shooting stats. And you'll see on the team thing, there's a team and opponent. You can think of that as offense and defense. So like this is listing these stats for them when they have the ball, and then opponent is what they're giving up on the defensive end. And then the last thing I want to show you is just like within these box scores, there are a couple interesting things you can look at as well with the play-by-play data. So obviously with the box score, we have the kind of main, box score stats. And Katie's going to show you what you can do with this in Stathead. You can do some really interesting, powerful searches with it in there. But within each individual box score, you can see the breakdown by quarter and half. You can also see, I showed you that play-by-play just list of plays. But one thing we use that data to generate is shot charts. So you can see, so here's like Brittany Griner's shot chart for this game. So you can see every shot she took, where it was on the floor, whether she made it or not. And you can filter it by quarter as well. You can see it for the full team. And then the last thing we generate are these really cool kind of visualizations of plus minus. So it shows you during every kind of stretch that the player was on the floor, what her impact was. and how long she was on the floor for. So you can kind of visualize like stretches where a team may be winning or losing the game, and things like that. Howard's asking if there are season-long shot charts as well. Let me pull it up for you back on. Yeah, so on the player page, that's a great question. There are indeed, if you go over to the shooting column and click whichever year you want to look at, this will have their shot chart as well as all of their shot splits. So you can see stuff like, you know, their shooting totals on home and road. You can see, you know, their shooting broken down by each thing. And then obviously you've got the big shot chart over here, which is every shot they took this season. You can also go over to this lineup section. Oh, actually, I'll come back to lineups in a second. I wanted to show you that before I turn it over to Katie. But talking about that kind of on-off, you know, plus-minus data, if you go to the on-off section, you can see a full breakdown of all of the team's stats when the player is on the floor, all of the team stats when they're off. You can see offensive, defensive, and then basically like net, you know, net rating or net effective field goal percentage, net rebounding, all of that stuff. So I think that this is kind of like a rabbit hole. Like once you kind of start digging deeper into this stuff, you really like can just get lost in like seeing the impact, seeing kind of, you know, what, yeah, just digging deeper and deeper in. So the last thing I want to show you is lineup data, which you can get on the player page, but to me, it's more interesting to look at it on the team level. So this is a team page. This is the Connecticut Sun. You can see kind of the basics on here. We show the game results. We have that kind of visualization, roster stats. You can see tables with every stat by every player, and all of that. But what I really want to show you is under this drop down that says more. Oh yeah, so on this gray bar, you can see kind of links off to other pages. We just recently got every transaction in WNBA history. So we got trades, free agent movement, all of that stuff. There's just kind of a record of all of that. So if you ever want to dig around and look at like the trade history of a team or like their transactions in a given year, you can do that. But then under more pages, you see we got game logs and splits. You can see all their starting lineups that they use, which is occasionally interesting. Just if like, you know, a team is like goes on a winning streak after they shuffle someone into the starting lineup, stuff like that. But what I really want to show you are these lineups. So you can see the lineups that the team uses the most frequently by minutes. And then you can see kind of their net stats. So this net points, that's the net rating for this 5-player lineup. And you can see which ones are winning, which ones are losing, how frequently they're using them, which ones are winning on the boards, which ones are winning on the offensive boards. So we have these 5-player lineups, and then we also break it down by 4, 3, and 2 players. So you can see duos that are doing well, trios, and obviously, to me, the most interesting one is the 5-player. You get to see the full lineup and everything that's doing. But I'm a basketball nerd, so I love looking at this stuff, you know, just seeing like how players are playing together, what kind of like adding a shooter or taking off a defender does to the balance of how the team plays together. And you can see all of that in this lineups page. So I think that's a good, I know I went through a lot, but I think that's a good kind of overview of some of the deeper stuff you can do on the site. Like I mentioned, we've got the full transaction history. We've got the full All-Star game history, which now that the All-Star game happened, I don't know, but for next year will be good. We've got the full draft as well. So you can see every year's draft. Obviously, this is kind of the main page where you can see the number 1, but you can dig in and see every player who was picked in every year and their stats if you want to see who was the best player in a given year's draft, or, you know, what teams can expect when they're picking in a certain spot, all of that stuff. you can calculate in there. So I think that's a pretty good overview. I'm gonna stop it for now. But does anyone have any questions about the main kind of basketball reference site and what you can do on there before Katie moves us on to Stathead? Any questions or anything that I didn't cover, anything that looked interesting that you'd like to see before we move on? Okay, well, if anything comes up as we're going, then feel free to ask. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, and she's going to show you what you can do in the premium subscription program we have, which is called Stathead.
All right, hey guys, hope you enjoyed Jonah's awesome presentation and just the amount of WNBA information that's available on Basketball Reference is just, it's unbelievable. I know that coming from me, I used to do some research for when I worked at ESPN for the WNBA, and that was probably now like 10 or 12 years ago, and there was nothing like that. So you guys are pretty lucky to be able to use all of that and have that at your fingertips. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is the Stathead tool. And basically, like in one sentence, it's the most powerful research tool on the internet for sports statistics. And I say that. We have it for all the different sports. Obviously today, I'm just going to focus on the WNBA tools. And specifically, we have two new tools that I kind of want to highlight. So where we really get started is you go to the Stathead basketball homepage, and I'm just going to start sharing my screen now. Let's see, make sure that one's the right one. Can you guys see that right there? All right, good. If you can't, let me know. All right, so this is where you want to start, and it's stathead.com/basketball. And so once you're logged in, you'll be here, and the WNBA tools are down here. And so we have 3 WNBA tools, and the 2 new ones that I'm going to focus on are the Player Game Finder and the Player Comparison Finder. And the Player Season Finder we have had for, not really sure how long, but we've had it up there for like a year or so, a couple of years. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just go through. I know some of you may be familiar with Stathead, how to do searches and stuff, but some of you may not. So I'm just going to kind of do a really quick overview. So if at the start it may seem really simple, just bear with me, and I'll get to some more advanced stuff a little bit later. So we're going to just start. I'm just going to kind of show you the basic overview of what a Stathead search looks like. So first thing you want to see is up here are basically what we call like, I guess we'll call them radio buttons. I don't know how you ever say. And this basically what it does is it kind of determines what kind of question you're going to answer. So that's the way you always start out with the Stathead search. It's like, what do I want to find out? What is my question? Do I want it? And really what you want to do in order to find the right tool to use is say, do I want to find something that has to do with a season stat? Or is it something like with a game stat? And then once you kind of figure out that part, you're like, okay, well, what do I need to like go look at, like single seasons or multi-seasons or single games or multi-games, and that's where these radio buttons come up here. So I'm gonna go through those in a little bit more detail later, but I just kind of want to go through the rest of what a Stathead search looks like. On the left side, you'll always see our search criteria, and that's really where you can get into the nitty gritty and basically drill down into, what kind of question that you're asking and the specifics of the criteria that you want to set. And then obviously here is where you will get all of your results. So, all right. Let's start here with the season finder. And I'm just going to show you the different types of searches that you can do with a season finder. This is basically the most simple one. And what the season finder is doing is it's just looking at like our season level data. You can search single seasons or career stats. So this first, if you check this first radio button, you're just going to obviously be looking at single season data. And we have we have a ton of data available. If I do this drop down, you're scrolling here through fast score stats per game, expected stats, rate stats, advanced stats, per possession stats. So you can run the gamut of the different types of stats. If you select this button, what this is basically doing is looking at combined seasons, so career stats, or over like 3 or 4 seasons. So if you want to look at, who's had the most points over the last 4 seasons in the WNBA, you would use that one. And then this third one, what it does is it looks at total seasons matching criteria. So what that means is the most seasons matching whatever criteria you put in here. So it counts up the number of seasons a player has with 500 rebounds, or a player averages 20 points per game. So how many seasons do they have that in their career? And it will rank them by that. So that's another really fun tool to use. And like I said, the criteria on the season level data, we have what over here, usually have like all these different type, you can display the stats, whether you want to look at totals per game, per 36 minutes. We also have, you can change it to per 10 minutes if you wanted. Most people use the default. And then the advanced format is more for the possession stats. So the turnover percentages, the offensive rating, the defensive rating. So it will put all the stats into that format. And then here I want to call attention to the filters on this left side. And these are going to be pretty standard across all of the different tools. And they usually break down, like here we say, statistical filters, biographical filters, and status filters. So statistical filters, pretty self-explanatory. Points, rebounds per game, all the stuff that you think of as stats. Biographical filters, that's more of like age, position, team, the year of their playing career. And then status filters, there are just a couple of these: active, all-star. There's some more that we use for WNBA, for the NBA and for other sports. But those are the 3 different types of filters that you'll find on each page. Just pretty consistent across all the different finders. So that's the season finder. It's pretty simple, but extremely valuable. And we have data going back for the entire history of the WNBA. So there's a stat out there in the WNBA. You can search it right here. The next tool that I wanna show you is the game finder, and this is a new one. So we can either go back to the homepage, or you can actually navigate right from here. And we go to the WNBA game finder. And so what the game finder is doing is it's basically looking at, allows you to search all of the box score data. So that really granular stuff that you find in box scores. And you'll see up here, we have a few more different options. So I'm just going to go through them. The first one is pretty simple. Obviously, it's single games, looking at performances. When's the last time a player had, 30 points and 10 rebounds in a game? Something like that. What's the most points scored in a game? Most rebounds in a game, the highest 3-point shooting percentage. So that's pretty simple. Now, these next 2 on the top, these actually they're at the game level, but they act kind of like the season finder. But what they do is they allow you to use criteria that's at the game level. So this is pretty cool. So what it does, so this one is for a single season. So what you can do is you can look up the most points, but then you can actually drill down into like the most points through a player's first game. That switch to playoffs. We can look at the most points in the first game of a season, or the most points through the first 30 games, or first 10 games of a season. So you're looking at cumulative stats, at season stats, but you can really drill down at the game level. So it allows you to do some really cool stuff. The other cool thing about using this cumulative season games thing is that it allows you to look at things like the most, you can set the game month. So who scored the most points in August, or who scored the most points in July? Cool things like that. And then one other little trick I wanted to show you about the cumulative, this radio button option up here, is that you can actually we have presets for triple doubles and double doubles. So if you wanted to find who has the most double doubles in like the first 10 games of the season, you click that, you check that. So now you've got 1 through 10 right there. And you would actually you could just like use their name to search for that, and then you would get that. So it's pretty cool the way that you can do that. And then this third one up here, excuse me, is very similar, except it allows you to look across seasons. So this one's kind of fun if you wanted to say, okay, well, who's like who's Mrs. August? So you could find like the most points scored by a player like over 5 seasons in August, like they show up in August only or something like that. So that's these two ones, like I said, they act kind of like the season finders, but you can set criteria at the game level. And then these two on the bottom, the search for season games matching criteria and total games matching criteria, that's where you would be able to look for the number of games for like how many times does a player score like 10 points in a game. Most like 20 point games or 10 rebound games in a season. And so that's where you do that. And then you set the criteria here for the game, the kind of game you want to look at. And then you can do that. And then you can look at total games would be like who in their career has the most 15 rebound games or 10 assist games. So you would use that option right there. So a lot of stuff here. I know I'm going through this kind of quickly, but we'll have some time for questions at the end, I know. So kind of just want to get through everything here to make sure that we're doing everything. So those are two really basic. Those are two of the tools that you can use. And then the third one that we have available for WNBA, which is also new, is the player comparison tool. And so this is kind of like your ultimate, like, you're at the bar and you're saying, no, this player is better than this player. And no way, this player always like, she can't rebound as much as this player. She doesn't have the shooting efficiency. Well, this is where you can settle that debate. And so what this is, it's really simple. You can select up to 6 players to compare, and you can compare them either just for a single season. You can compare them on their entire careers, and that's what you would use for this button. And then if you wanted to, what you can do, if you check this button, it allows you to compare them over a different like number of seasons. So you can look at from a player's like 3rd season in the league through their 7th season in the league, or from their age 25 season through their age 29 season. And the way that you do that is you basically first you have to enter a name in there. So we would enter someone like, so we'll do like Sue Bird, and then you enter something like that. And then and you can see what my favorite team is here, probably. Yes, I'm a UConn fan. And so then these drop downs appear, and what you do is then you can then choose like, okay, so if I want to look at their entire careers, I can compare them that. But maybe say I only wanted to compare them from their 3rd season in the league through their 6th season in the league. And then I would do that for each of, well, she's been there for 5 seasons. So we want to do 3rd through 5. So that lets you just compare through there. Maybe you wanted to just look at like their first season in the league. So what you would do is you would go back to the single season one. And then there you would be comparing their first season in the league. And then obviously in order to see any of the results, you click get results there. And then you have a comparison of how each of those players did in their first season. All right, so that is kind of the basics of the 3 tools that we have. And it's a lot of information. A couple other things that I want to show you. Any of these searches are editable. So anytime you do that search, you click get results. All you gotta do is click this show criteria button right here, and you get back to the search form. And that's the same even if you were like using the game finder. So we do a search here. And right there, so this was just a simple search for the most points scored in a WNBA game. And then let's say, oh, well, I just wanted to limit it to this year. I'm stupid. I meant to do that. So you go hit that show criteria button, change your criteria, and then just click this get results button over here. And it allows you to see it again. 2 other things that I wanted to show you that are really cool. So this share results button, what this does is it allows you to generate what's called, we call a tiny URL. And that's because it has tiny in here. And what you can do is then you can copy that link and you can share that with anybody. They don't have to have a Stathead account. You can put that in your articles. You can put that in Twitter, anywhere, and anyone can open that and they can see the full results of that search. So that's really helpful because you guys are probably using this information. You're going to be writing and using it to show a lot of people different things. Probably a lot of people don't have Stathead accounts, but you can still show them the search. You can still show them the full results by generating this little tiny URL. And that's, again, like I said, using that share results button, and it just has this little easy pop-up. And then the final thing I wanted to show you, another really cool tool that we have here is every single of these results tables. So this thing right here is all downloadable. And you can download it either to Excel or as a CSV file if you use some other spreadsheet program. So all you do is you hover your mouse over this export data link right here, and then you can click get as Excel workbook, and that downloads it directly to Excel. So it'll pop up right there. You don't have to do anything. And then this one, what it does is it just converts it to a table that you can use to then copy and paste into a CSV file. So basically, like, yeah, we give you this information, and yeah, you can do all these queries, but then you can go download all the information and then do all of your own, data mining, if you guys are into that. So it's incredible the amount that you can do with Stathead and the tools that we have. And just that's kind of the 36,000 foot view of everything. And obviously it's a ton of information to take in right now. But I just want to kind of sum up by saying, the best way to learn to use Stathead is just to try it, to think of different queries, to think of different stuff you want to look up. And it's just a trial and error because there are so many nooks and crannies and so many different options and criterias that you can find, that you can do, that it's really just, that's how I learned, is just using it over and over again. Figuring out, what's best. So that kind of is the end of all the tools. The other thing, I think we might mention this in the end, but I just wanted to make sure you guys know, we're going to be offering some discounts on annual subscriptions. So be sure those will be coming in an email probably either later today or tomorrow. So make sure that if you do sign up, you take advantage of that offer. And just know that we're always available for questions. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Always available for questions on Twitter. You can DM us. You can just, flat out at us on Twitter. And then we have our feedback form. If you notice, there's like a blue feedback in the corner of the pages that pops up directly to a feedback form that you can submit any questions through. And you can even call us if you really want to. The phone number's on the website. But there's a ton of ways to get in touch with us. And there is one other option. Let me just share my screen again, if I can. Wanted to show you the support portal that we have. So if you click this link right here, this is our support portal. And there's a ton of information. A lot of it is kind of, has a lot to do with the others. It's for all the sports. So maybe, it may not be, there's a ton of information for the other sports, but it does, if you have any problems with like your account, billing, or if you kind of want a little bit know more about a glossary of stats and some tips and tricks and stuff like that, that's really useful too. So, and you can find that, like I said, you can find that on the Stathead homepage, in that little help and support link. So, with that in mind, if you guys have questions right now, I guess either for Jonah or for me or for anyone, we're here and ready to answer anything for you. I would say put them in the chat? Is that right, Jonah? That's the best way to do it?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Let's see. Someone said, Howard, oh yeah, you answered that one. About the defensive rebound percentage. Yeah, that is interesting that they didn't have that in there.
Well, if y'all think of anything while you're using the site, like he said, there are a number of ways to contact us. But yeah, I guess we can just move on to, I guess, the conclusion here. Yeah, Katie kind of went over all this, but we're going to email you an exclusive Stathead discount code. Once you get that, you can create your account and start your free trial. Use Stathead, enjoy it. And if you have any questions, hit us up on social media or email Katie through the support at Stathead thing. Is there anything else, Katie, you can think of, or anything, any parting words or anything?
No, I mean, like I kind of explained before, like the best thing to do is just to try it out, and just it's a matter of really, it's just trial and error, and you can have so much fun. I would say, like you maybe set like a timer on your computer so that you don't have to spend too much time on there, because sometimes you can get lost in like what we like to call rabbit holes, digging the information there. So.
Yeah, and definitely the more you use it, the more you'll just get used to kind of the interface. And yeah, I that's really the best way to learn. So I'm gonna stop the share, and so I can stop the recording.